Well, a very big welcome to you all. My name is Natalie Ashdown from the Open Door Coaching Group, and welcome to our Coaching Cafe, where today we're thinking about, are our leaders equipped to lead in today's environment? I thought a bit of a provocative topic, and I would love to welcome to the line Clifford Morgan. Cliff, welcome to the line to join us today. We're talking about your book today, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, thank you very much, Natalie. It's really exciting and a bit of an honor to be invited here today. Having, been an Open Door alumni and listening in to all kind of the experts as I was going through and across the years. So it's nice to be invited back.
Well, it's going to be great to have you, Cliff. And we're going to jump into the questions very quickly. Just before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we're all meeting today. We've found out that people are dialing in from all around Australia and internationally as well. We acknowledge the traditional owners and the custodians on the lands on which we're meeting today, their continuing connection to the land, waters, and communities of Australia and international communities, paying our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and anyone who might be a traditional owner of the lands on which you're meeting today. So, Cliff, we are asking this question today: are our leaders equipped to lead in today's environment? We want to explore the coaching leaders. You know, this is a quality book because, look, I've already tabbed it up quite significantly. But just by way of introduction, as Cliff mentioned, everyone, he is an Open Door Coaching alumni, an endorsed organisational psychologist, a coaching expert with over 15 years of service with the Royal Australian Air Force. Shout out to everyone who is at the air show today here in Melbourne from Air Force. We met several years ago when you attended the Air Force Coaching Leadership Program, Cliff, back in Glenbrook, New South Wales, and that venue and those courses always have a soft spot in my heart because it's just a magnificent venue for learning and a magnificent group that we bring together every time.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love. I have very fond memories of that week, and spending the day with you, learning all about coaching, and then kind of going up to the mess hall there, that overlooking, the plains of Sydney, I guess you could say, and absolutely beautiful spots. So a great place to reflect on the learning that we've just gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those of you that are new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We are all about creating a community, sharing our learned experiences, having thought provoking conversations. And at the end of it, you also have CCEUs, ICF CCEUs available to all our regulars. Welcome back. It's fantastic to have you join us every Friday at this time, regardless of where you're dialing in from. It is definitely a highlight of our week to come together for the Coaching Cafe. Please feel free to interact with us. I've got some questions for Cliff, but we're very happy that you hit the chat box. Ask us any questions that you like as we go along. So with that, I'll turn off the slides. We will come back and show you a couple of slides at the end, but I'll turn off the slides so we can just focus on you, Cliff. So let's get into the questions. Firstly, I want to say congratulations on the book. It is a big thing to write a book. You've just been sharing with me that there's a couple of organisations that have purchased 150 copies, which is wonderful to hear. Can you share some of the inspiration behind the book with us all? Tell us where it all started.
Yeah, look, so I've been wanting to write a book for a long time, and always kind of knew that there would be some book that I would write. And for any of you on the line that has kind of had that inspiration or have that inspiration, the biggest question is, what book do I write? And that's always a challenging conversation, a place where to start, right? And for me, I've been teaching coaching skills and running what I call the Coaching Leader Program for a while, where I'm really teaching coaching skills to leaders so that they can equip their people as they lead day to day, rather than send them off on a 2-week course. Actually do the on-the-job training and development, which is much more cost effective, much more efficient, and much of the research argue actually much more effective as well. So I've been doing that for a number of years, and really it was at the catalyst was my business coach. So I engaged a business coach to help me specifically develop my business. and she was kind of, you know, poking, prodding, kicking for me to actually write a book and to help that leverage or leverage that in my business. And so, you know, really it was the conversations, well, what do you feel most confident in writing? Which book do you feel most confident in writing? And I said, well, probably the one that I'm, you know, teaching the most. And so that was the coaching skills, and essentially taking the much of the program that I was running and the training that I was running, committing it to paper, but also what was really great about the process was it helped me flesh out a whole lot of kind of the thinking and the IP, and it really took my thoughts on you know, coaching and leadership and how they integrate and how you teach them, how you use them to that next level. It forced me to take that to the next level. So yeah, it was really my business coach that gave me the kick, and you know, that was probably the easiest book for me to write. Not saying that process was easy, but definitely, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things come up for me. First of all, great coaches have a coach, which is what you're
Yeah.
talking about there as well. And what I love is that this is not just a get the thoughts on paper kind of book. It's actually your reflections on leadership and
Mm.
coaching as well as you've gone along. And I really got that out of the book as I was reading it. I did read that you thought the book was all consuming at one point as well. So perhaps for those listeners who are thinking about writing a book or thinking about documenting their thoughts, could you give us a little bit of an insight to how you balanced your many roles whilst at the same time writing the book?
Yeah. With difficulty in probably.
Yes. Relate to that.
It's a roller coaster, right? So it's
Yeah.
super beneficial thing to do. I believe that everybody can, if they apply themselves, you know, it's possible for them to write a book. But look, it's 100% difficult, right? So, you know, I'm a business owner. I'm you know, I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm, you know, committed to a number of organizations outside my own. And you know, and then I've got to try and find time for me, right, to make sure that I'm refilling my cup so that I can do all that sort of stuff. And so it is a challenging process, right? And I think for me, there's a couple of real kind of insights and learnings throughout that journey. The first one is you've got to learn what is your process to writing and writing a book. So for me, when I decided, yep, I'm going to do this, I asked a number of different people. I went online and I, you know, sort of researched what's the best kind of way to write and the process and all those sorts of things. And many people will tell you that, you know, get up and be disciplined and you do 15 minutes every day, or, you know, half an hour block every single day, and you just turn up and you dedicate that time. And then, you know, over time you'll write the book. And so I tried that, and I you know, I made the decision I'm going to sacrifice some of my exercise. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to write for an hour every day, and then, you know, over time I'll knock it all off. But what I found was it would take time for me to get into the headspace to actually write effectively, by which time often my young girls were getting up and, you know, coming in, and then the day starts, and I, you know, it wasn't an effective use of time for me. So, you know, I tried, you know, my business coach, the way that she actually writes her books. She's a speaker naturally. So she will actually record herself speaking and get that recording transcribed and then edited. And that's the way that she writes. And I tried that as well. And I would spend so much time trying to get it right and all that sort of, it was not an effective use of time for me. So what ended up just working well was blocking out whole days, where possible 2 days. And, you know, it might take me an hour to get into the headspace, but once I was there, I had that dedicated time to just punch through it. And so that, for me, learning what's my process to writing, what do I need to do in order to get the words out, was a bit of a journey. The second big thing for me was, don't sacrifice the things that allow you to be in the space to write. I will often say to people, and I often kind of teach and speak about the principle that it's the things that get us through the tough times that we often stop doing when times get tough. And, for me, I mentioned that I was, I made the decision to sacrifice some of my exercise in order to write the book. 3 months into that process, what I was finding was I had low mood. I wasn't as energetic as I could. I actually couldn't focus. So I'd sit down to write and I just couldn't focus and get the words out. And, there was a bunch of other things kind of going on. And, to the point where, if I reflect back and I'm brutally honest, I was probably on the downward path to depression, right? And so one of the things that I did straight away was go, okay, cool, let's bump up the exercise. And I went to a minimum of 3 sessions a week. And within 1 week of making that change, my focus was back. And I was writing much more effectively. So for me, it was a real lesson around what are those things that help you to be at your best so that you can focus and get the words out and write effectively. And that becomes really important, as I was saying, managing everything, right? So I've got all these other roles and all these other things that I've got to do. I've still got to run a business. I've still got to, coach a bunch of clients and all sorts of things. If I'm not at my best, then I can't do all of that as well as, write a quality book. So there were 2 lessons that really stood out for me. And I think probably the third one, if I think about it, there was a point there where I got really frustrated in the middle because I felt like I wasn't making any progress. And there's we talk in the book around goal setting and why it's important to measure progress and make sure the goals are measurable. And for me, I was like, well, I can't see myself making any progress. And so what I actually did was I got a whiteboard, on the office over there, and I actually drew like just a simple rectangle and put a bunch of lines on it and chunked it up into the chapters. And every time I'd finish a section or a chapter, I'm scribbling off, and I could actually see the project. It was making it visible for me. And that in itself, in psychology, we talk about the goal proximity gradient, where the closer you get to your goal, the more motivated you become to finish it. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in terms of dopamine in the brain and all sorts of things. But what I was seeing was I was seeing myself progress and get closer to the goal. So the back half of the book, I was actually much more motivated to get it done, get it written, and that was really helpful. So there's 3 lessons from that whole, the writing journey, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing, Cliff. And I know there's a lot of great coaches on the line. And when I'm listening to you, I'm relating, of course, we're talking about writing the book, but really everything, those 3 lessons you share are applicable to any big goal we go after, really.
Very much so.
And I think that's the real lesson for me, is that what you're talking about with those 3 lessons can be applied to any big goal. We have to look after ourselves whilst we go after those big goals. It's great to have the visuals up there to check off those milestones to keep that motivation going with any big goal. But the other thing that really resonated with me when you were talking was around, as coaches, as leaders, following those 3 principles that you talked about is so important. Like, we have to lead ourselves first, coach ourselves first, which is what you talk about in the book as well. But following those principles to find out when is the best time for me, what does that look like for me, how do I do the best and perform at my best? Great coaching questions we can ask for smaller goals, but also for those bigger goals that we're all going after.
100%. And I think it really highlights the importance of really the coaching approach, right? Because we particularly talking about finding my way of writing the book. There's a whole lot of successful, authors out there that I spoke to and I looked at, and their way didn't work for me. right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's right at the heart of coaching, isn't it? Is getting the people we are coaching to identify their way and their process and go on the journey to find that, rather than us telling them what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, we've all got different ways of going about achieving our big goals. It is about finding our way. So let's go with let's get to the heart of our conversation. This is the heart of our conversation. But if I could just move it also, you write in the book about challenges faced by leaders today. And the environment that we're finding ourselves in today. And we are asking that big question, you know, are leaders equipped to lead in today's environment? So, probably two questions for you, Cliff. What kind of challenges do you think are being faced by leaders
Mhm.
today in today's environment? And then the second question, I know it's a stacked question for those coaches on the line. Don't don't get too carried away. But I am interested in: do you feel that leaders are equipped today?
Yeah. Um, so in terms of what challenges, so there's obviously a whole lot of raft of challenges, right? So there's
Mm,
research out there which suggests that you know, it's often up to 10 years between when someone gets their first supervisory responsibilities and when they actually get quality leadership training. So that's a decade of trying to figure out, you know, how do I lead well? You know, it's
yeah,
that perpetual problem that people get promoted and they don't actually get trained and equipped to do that next role. And they get promoted because of their technical ability or their tenure. They stick around long enough, or yeah, they're really good at their job. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good from a leadership perspective. So the fact that they aren't trained, and to marry with that other research, there's $10 spent at the executive level in terms of leadership development for every $1 spent at the frontline level. So, and that's across Australia Pacific. So, all the leadership development is so often at the high end level, but you know, this early part of a leader's career, they're just trying to figure out and make it up as they go along, right? And so, what do people do in the absence of any specific training or knowing what to do? They look at the people that go ahead of them. But if they're in the same situation, it's the blind leading the blind, and it's this
yeah,
you know, perpetuation of poor leadership. And I, you know, I when I talk about my personal why and purpose, I talk about warring against the perpetuation of poor leadership. So, I think that there's a piece there where people don't have the training, they don't have the they're not equipped from that perspective, and so often they haven't actually sat under good leadership. And I'm seeing this more and more often, is that people have seen bad leaders, they've experienced bad leaders, they kind of hear about what good leadership is, but they haven't actually sat directly under and been led by a really good, solid leader. So, in terms of role models and experiencing what that is, they don't have a close experience of what they should be replicating and then doing as leaders. So I think that's one aspect there. And then I think there's kind of the environmental challenges that leaders are facing. You know, obviously we've got the things like you know, COVID going on and everybody going virtual, the technology and disruption. And you know, I talk about the fact that we're experiencing the effects of pandemics and world wars and global events in a way that we haven't experienced in our lifetime. You know,
mm,
previous generations, our grandparents have kind of gone through some similar type things, but you know, it's been generations really since the magnitude of some of these things have gone on. And so again, we're kind of very different. What do we do? How do we do this? And on top of that, I think we've got the challenges around the changing workforce that's coming through. So what we do know is that the millennials and Gen Z and whatever they're calling the young people coming in behind them, they all want up to 50% more development from their work and their workplace. They don't necessarily want to be sent off for 2 weeks. That where they want that development to come from is from their immediate supervisor. So they are actually looking for coaching, mentoring relationships with their managers. And if if those managers, the leaders haven't been trained in how to lead well, then and how to develop people specifically, then they're not going to do that well. They're not going to meet the needs of the younger workforce that is coming through, which, when you consider kind of the war on talent that everybody talks about, which is a very real thing, and many of my clients are struggling to both attract and retain good people, then that people, if they're not getting their development needs met at work, they've never had more opportunity to go elsewhere and find somewhere where they are going to get those needs met. So it becomes really important. I'd actually argue it's more important now than ever for leaders to be really intentional and equipped to develop their people in the way that they lead. And I just, there's I come across so many leaders in my workplace that they don't know how to develop people. Even some of the research from Gartner suggests that over 45% of senior executives are not confident in their own ability to develop the people they lead. And so, when we've got stats out there, matched with my experience, that's why I put the argument out there. And it is a bit of a controversial statement to get people thinking and talking. But I do fundamentally believe that many leaders in senior positions aren't equipped to lead in a way that meets the need of their people today.
Yeah, and there's so many things that resonate with me with what you're saying there, Cliff. And I think the thing that stands out for me is to actually ask ourselves as leaders and as coaches, are we equipped? Are we equipped as leaders and coaches to lead our people, given the changing workforce, given the changing environment, given the changing situations we find ourselves in, and the change in our teams and our staff, etc. And I don't mean that from a defensive point of view, but I ask that question from a reflective point of view. And if you turn it around to say, what do I need to be a better leader? What do I need to be more equipped? Is a really powerful question we can sit down and reflect on. And if the answer is actually no, I don't feel fully equipped, then obviously we can go out and investigate what that might look like and what else I need to do. And I agree with you that many leaders may not be fully equipped, but there's a vulnerability in actually there's a vulnerability in actually admitting that. So maybe we admit it to our coaches or to mentors or to our personal colleagues. But I think actually reflecting and admitting that vulnerability is actually a good thing, because then we can obviously do something about it.
Very, very much so. And it's interesting you say that, Natalie. There is a vulnerability to it, but there's also a real strength in it.
And
that's we can when we are vulnerable in that way, we can draw strength from it, in the sense that we don't have to it relieves the pressure off us, right? To say that we don't know, to say, hey, and one of the things that I'll often, I give a keynote around, navigating the pressures of leadership in the current times, right? Which is around a lot of the topic themes that we've kind of been talking about. But one of the things I say that is, leaders become the bottleneck in the organization, and they're relied on by people to solve all their problems and to come up with all the answers. And it's just like, it's a pressure cooker, right? It's pressure from above, pressure from below, pressure from outside the organization. And then there's the pressure we place on ourselves to deal with the pressure that we are under, right? But when we are vulnerable like that, we can actually relieve the pressure. And it also allows us to, I lost my train of thought. But so sorry, that's where I was going. It demonstrates a level of security in ourselves, which is perceived as strength by the people that we lead. So when we say, hey, I don't know about that, and that's fine, but I will go and find out, or I'll get you to go and find out and do all that sort of stuff. And we're comfortable and secure enough in ourselves as leaders to admit that to the people that we lead, then they see that as a sign of strength.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And Ian Scott there said self-awareness is the key ingredient of leadership. And of course, you've given a shout out to Air Commodore Ian Scott as well in the book, which I noticed, which was really great. We have only got a few minutes left, Cliff, and I'm sure that everyone on the line would feel the same way I do. I just want to ask you a million questions and get your wisdom on everything. But let me just turn to the actual the heading or the title of the book, which is The Coaching Leader.
Mm.
And I want you to tell us more about what you mean by that, coaching leader. You say in the book that it's not just putting a coaching leader, it's not just going, you're a coach, you're a leader, stick those two words together. It means a lot more to you. Perhaps you can share with us what you're thinking in that regards.
Yeah, certainly. So, first of all, I'm a big believer that we actually don't want to fill and stack our organizations full of executive coaches
Yeah.
because, we will spend all our time talking and having these coaching conversations rather than actually making decisions, getting things done, executing. There's a place for giving direction. We need our leaders to lead. However, I'm a big believer that if we have a coaching skill set as part of our leadership toolkit, then we can turn every single opportunity, every single thing that we do into an opportunity to develop people if we choose to. And so I'm a big believer that, coaching skills will enhance every single thing that you do as a leader. Whether that's you sitting down and reflecting and going through things and you're coaching yourself in order to make a better decision or come up with a better plan or, do something more effectively, be more prepared, or it's using coaching skills to draw the best out of others, to bring the best out of others, as your book says. And and do all that sort of thing, right? So for me, leadership is all about influencing a group of people in order to create the change necessary to achieve an agreed upon outcome. And that's kind of my definition of leadership. And all the other definitions will boil down into some version of that. For me, coaching leaders, what they do is they use coaching as their default or primary mechanism to influence people. And anyone that's done any coaching training and that sort of thing is familiar that coaching is not right for every single circumstance, but I think it's probably the best default approach for a leader to take. So if someone comes with a question and comes with something, it's coaching them as is your natural kind of preference to deal with the situation, and you only stray from that as necessary. But your baseline is asking questions, trying to get people to take ownership and think of solutions themselves and drawing the best out of them. So yeah, in a nutshell, without kind of elaborating too much more, because I know we're short on time, that's probably how I'd answer that question, Natalie.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, your book is, well, not of course, but for people who are listening, the book is actually stacked with those coaching tools that we would expect the coaching leader to be demonstrating, not only demonstrating, but role modeling. And you've dedicated a whole chapter to actually practice. So one of the things that really resonated with me about the book is the coaching leader, like all of us on the line and those people that are listening. We're people that actually practice. We are in the practice of coaching, extending our development, extending our practice, looking for opportunities to coach in our day-to-day, just like everyone that might be listening. So
Yeah.
There's a couple of really strong elements to actually being the coaching leader that you've actually dedicated a whole chapter to in the book, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually put a challenge out to leaders and say, are you you're a technical expert in your area, or are you a leader who is, who has a background as a technical? So I do a bit of work with engineers, right? And so, particularly if you're talking to an engineering director, I ask, are you an engineer who is a director, or are you a leader, an organizational leader? Are you a director who happens to be an engineer? And where's your primary focus? And I say, if you are a leader and you are leading the majority of things that you do as a leader, then why don't you act as a professional leader? And so therefore practice your skill set, develop your skill set, kind of take ownership and approach things from a leadership perspective rather than a technical perspective in a leadership role.
Yeah, and there's there's so much in what you've just said there as well. Cliff, we are going to have to ask you to come back. There's no doubt about that. For now, what I would like to do is share my screen again and let people have the opportunity to find out how they can purchase the book. And you can see it here. They can go to cliffordmorgan.com.au, go to products and look at the coaching leader. You'll find the book on the website. There's also thank you so much. There's also a promo code that people that are listening can actually use, and that is type in the promo code open door, all lowercase, no spaces, until the 31st of March. Thank you for that offer, and people can get 20% off. There's also a QR code there that people can download a copy of your first chapter. If you do download that first chapter, you will find out about the great training activity you use, which is called Potatoes and Straws. So that's another reason to download, to find out about potato and straws. We won't talk about it now, but I'm sure everyone will love to read about that as well. So there's great opportunities. We are also going to be starting a book club. So Cliff, how do you feel about us using your book as the first book that we use for book club? Is that something you'd be interested in, and perhaps coming back and letting us think about the book even further when we do book club?
Yeah, I look, it would be an honor to be the first book, or be honored to be involved, but to be the first one, that would be a real privilege. So I would love to come back, and I'd actually love to hear about other people's ideas around my thoughts, because these are, my thoughts and my perspective and my experience, but I'd love to hear their perspective on my thoughts as well. So looking forward to the opportunity when that comes about.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And so everyone, we are thinking about book club. Lots of people make a commitment to reading one book a month, or reading one book a year, whatever it might be. We really want to get that going with everyone, and then discuss the great coaching books that are out there, particularly the books that have been written by the Open Door Coaching alumni. Let's celebrate those achievements as well. So for those of you that are interested, we do have a Leader as Coach program coming up, which is what Cliff has been talking about as well. Runs a similar program. So we've got Leader as Coach coming up, where we really do focus on those fundamental coaching skills, and of course the Certificate for Workplace and Business Coaching, where you can develop the full toolkit. We have a program coming up there as well. Finally, Cliff, let me say thank you very much on behalf of everyone that's on the line. Thank you for sharing your insights. We know that we could have you on the line for the next 4 hours, I think. But thank you for the insights that you've shared, those 3 principles. Thank you for introducing us to that idea of the coaching leader, not just a coach and a leader. Those kind of insights I found so valuable as well. So thank you.
Not a problem, Natalie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your coaching. We look forward to catching up with you at our next Coaching Cafe. And at our next Coaching Cafe, we'll also be featuring another of our Open Door alumni as well, looking at the idea around retention and attraction and career agility. So we look forward to catching up with you at our next Coaching Cafe. We'll say enjoy your coaching for now.